Hi everybody, this is an update on my 30 book challenge. So, influenced by Criminoli's 100 book challenge, don't like calling Criminoli, Ollie's 100 book challenge, I took up a 30 book challenge and it's been really hard work. I say hard work, it's just been frustrating because I really like buying books. And the idea of the challenge was I wouldn't buy any books until I'd read 30 books that I own. So, well, 30 books. Because there's a few of them from the library, but you get my point. So 30 books I was going to read before I bought another book. I've actually had a couple bought by my wife, which is nice. But yeah, that idea of just going into a shop and having a little look around charity shops or second-hand shops, and I love all that. And I usually, as when I get paid, I usually buy something from eBay. Those kind of things haven't been happening. So really keen to get out of this 30 book challenge. And I've done 15 books so far, so I wanted to talk about that. I'm going to do 2 videos. This one first, 15 book update, and then I'm going to do another one once I've done my 30 books. So these are the books I've read so far in this 30 book challenge. So first up was Only Good Indians. So the Only Good Indians here, Stephen Graham Jones. I have done a separate review of this because I thought it was so good, and it was also part of the Horror Mayhem. Yeah, so it went into June a little bit because I was a little bit late finishing Horror Mayhem, but that's why the review went up when it did. But I really like that book. That was really good. So have a look at that review if you fancy it. So Only Good Indians, Stephen Graham Jones. Then I read Death of Grass, and that was really good. Again, quite different. It was an older book, so it had a different feel to it, but I really enjoyed that. Had a little shades of John Wyndham in its style. Definitely recommend it. Then I read Sisters Brothers. So now we're into June on the Range when I read Sisters Brothers. And that was one that just came up on a list of recommended westerns. So I had my radar up for it when I saw it in a second-hand bookshop. So I bought it, but I didn't really know what to think of what I was going to be getting. And I was really impressed. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. So that was the first book I read for June on the Range. And shortly after that, by the way, I also started a short story collection with a Western theme. And I didn't get through all of that. I've read a few of the book stories, but I've left that to the side for a bit because I wasn't enjoying those stories. So I'm going to go back to that later, but I didn't finish that one. And then I also read The World's Wife, which is a collection of poetry from Carol Ann Duffy. That was really cool. I really like her stuff, but because I didn't study her in school, which apparently lots of people study her in school, wasn't aware of her until relatively recently, so it's really nice reading that. And I've got another one to read as well that I've found that I'm looking forward to reading as well. I also read The Producer as Composer, so this is right up my street. I love this kind of thing, so that kind of analysis and commentary on the different ways producers have been creative in the work they've done on different albums and different songs. That's a really good book. And if you're curious about that kind of thing, so how music's been produced and some of the ways that producers have influenced the creative side of the songs and had an influence on their sound and those kind of things, then definitely have a look at that book because it is really, really good. Definitely recommend it. Then I read a collection of short stories called Late Victorian Gothic Tales. And this book is really good. It's got lots of classic stories in it. I didn't find it consistently brilliant. I do sometimes struggle with the style of Victorian writing, so I don't normally get as immersed as I do in stuff that's sort of 20th century stuff. So I do. I use usually my head enjoying it rather than my heart enjoying it, if you know what I mean. So I don't get as immersed, but I'm usually very glad to read them and I get something from them, but it's not quite as much as I get from 20th century writing. So I did get that a little bit through the collection, but there were definitely some great stories in there. And then I read The Galaxy and the Ground Within. So obviously this is relatively recent books. This is just a couple of years old. And this is the last book in the Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers. I've done a whole video on the whole series now because now that I read that book, I could do that. So I was waiting to read that 4th book before I did the video on the whole series. So I've done that now. So if you're curious about what I think of the series and what I think about that particular book, then have a look at that video, because I was really enjoying doing that whole video, and I was really glad to finally be able to do a video on the Wayfarer series, because I do, just spoiler warning, I do absolutely recommend it. Even though it does divide people. Some people don't like the focus on character, and some people prefer it, that her stories to have more direct conflict in there. There is conflict in there, but a lot of the conflict is not usually what people write about. So she's quite an unusual writer, I think. So that was then. And then I read another book by Edgar Carrett called The Nimbus Flipout, which is more of his extremely short stories. So these are like vignettes. They are very, very short. But there's a style to him that I quite like. And he's in this one, there were some stories in there that were really surprising. The content was a bit shocking, and kind of gave you a little bit of a jump start as you see the title, and then you start reading and go, oh, okay, that's a bit odd. But I did enjoy them, and I think he's quite an interesting character, an interesting author with quite a unique voice. And then I read Damon Knight's book, The Other Foot, and this was intriguing. I loved the idea, and it kind of sparked me off as a writer with an idea I might have pursued, but then I've kind of left that a little bit because I've got this other idea that I want to do. But anyway, it was kind of intriguing and interesting, but I didn't really like the ending, so the ending spoiled it for me. But yeah, it was nice to read that, and I love the cover. But yeah, it was nice to read something else by Damon Knight. Then I read a collection of the Woody Allen comic strips, which is quite a unique thing, I think, which is quite fun, and that's called Dread and Superficiality. And I bought that in LA when I went there, so that was really cool that I got that. So it was really nice to read that properly. And then I read something that I found in a second-hand shop a little while ago, and I thought I wanted to read it, partly because I'm building up to doing a video on looking at history through cartoons, and that's the Cartoon History of Britain. That was really good, and it goes right back, and it's a really interesting book, actually. So it was a nice find. So that was a good one to add to this 15-book thing. And then I finally read Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and I enjoyed that. That was really good, and I want to read more Jules Verne. That was the first Jules Verne book I'd read, so weirdly, that's a classic author I should have read ages ago. But that was nice to read. And then I read Shane. So Shane was the third book I started for June on the Range, and the second one I finished, and I really enjoyed that. That was a really good book. It was full of very real, interesting, vivid characters, and a really good plot. A kind of a classic kind of gunslinger plot that we're used to from the movies, but it just had a really nice feel to it, and it was a really good book. So definitely recommend that. Then I read Nick Kent's music journalism classic, Dark Stuff. Is just basically full of interviews with very famous music artists, and that's a really good book. It's quite a opinionated book. It's quite a controversial book, but it's very good. And you know, it's literally the voices of the artist talking, so it's not like he's doctored it to make a particular opinion about someone. So yeah, it's a really interesting book, and there's quite a variety of people he talks to. So I definitely recommend that. And then I read Fun Home. So I've got a bunch of graphic novels that I'm getting through to try and make another graphic novel video. And this was a really interesting surprise. So I wasn't sure, I'd heard a lot about it, but I wasn't really sure what I was getting into. And I thought it was really well written. Some of it kind of felt a little bit like personal memoir kind of thing, but some of it felt like stand-up comedy. The timing of the end of the chapters particularly was really good. But I'm definitely going to talk about that in another graphic novel video. I don't think I'm going to do one just on that, but I'm going to do one on graphic novels soon. And then the last one of the 15 was another graphic novel, and this was one that I was tempted to do a whole video just on this book because I really, really liked it. I liked it a lot. And Will McPhail is definitely someone I've just become a fan of. He's apparently got a collection of his New Yorker cartoons coming out in October, so I'm very excited about that. But this was a really good book. And again, very personal book, but it wasn't himself as the character in this, but you could clearly see how it was influenced by his own personal ideas about life and relationships and his own mental state. And it was really interesting, really good, and again, quite funny. Well, very funny in places. So, yeah, a nice one to finish this batch of 15 books. So, that's my first batch to get this 30-book challenge out of the way so I can carry on looking for books in the wild. Tell me if you've read any of those books and what you think of what I've said about them. Some of them I have done videos specially, just reviews of those books, and there's some that I'm going to do later on, and some that just were fine but not really worth reviewing individually, I think. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and see you later. Bye.